This week you're going to start the analysis unit of the course. And so we're going to start with Chapter 10, which is all about analyzing stories and what effective analyzing analysis essays have in them and how to conduct and then write your own analysis. So analysis is really quite a difficult skill for students to truly master because I studied literature in my graduate and undergraduate programs. It's something that I've spent really 7 years doing. So of course for me it comes quite naturally, and I'm able to do that. But it does take a lot of time to be able to do that. You have to think really critically about what you're reading and what you're looking at in order to get beyond what you see on the surface. Another course that I teach is all about analysis, and it literally takes them all quarter to be able to get down what an analysis is and to be sure that they're conducting an analysis instead of a summary. And I think that's what is the most difficult thing for students, especially at this level, to comprehend. An analysis is looking beyond what the story says to look at how it's being said. So it's not saying in the story this happens, this happens, this happens. That's not an analysis, that's a summary. But in an analysis, you look at perhaps the language that an author is using, you look at the characters and why they act the way they do. You can look at the historical context that the story was being written in. That is what an analysis looks at. So be really, really careful, especially when you go to write your paper. You are not going to summarize the entire thing. That's not going to get you anywhere in your essay. You need to analyze the story. So I'm going to provide an example of an analysis in a separate video, hopefully to get you started on what to look for your own essay. So hopefully that'll help. Just be really aware of what you're doing and make sure that you're presenting an argument in your paper, not a simple summary. So that's kind of the essential nitty-gritty of what an analysis is. Another definition really quickly is to break a text apart and look at the different pieces and how they come together to create meaning. So again, you're looking past that surface information of what the story's about and looking at what's going on underneath the plot. Okay, so how does the information you've learned about analyzing stories relate to narrative writing? Well, very simply, when you wrote and learned about narratives at the beginning of the quarter, you were learning about things like plot and dramatic action setting, all that kind of stuff. But that was from the perspective of writing a narrative. Now you can use that same information to help you analyze somebody else's writing, because they're using those same elements. An author sits down and has to decide what the plot is, what the characters are, what the theme might be, things like that. So they're coming from the perspective of a writer, and you did that at the beginning of this quarter. So now you're going to approach a reading with that same information in mind, but looking at what the author was doing. Okay, so you're not writing a narrative, you're analyzing somebody else's narrative, but the information is the same. So if you're writing a narrative, again, you have to think about what the plot's going to be. But then when you're analyzing, you look at the plot and see if different things are going on within it. Hope that makes sense. All right, so what do effective analyses have? Very importantly, they have an arguable thesis. That means that your thesis needs to state an argument. We're not writing researched arguments in this class. Instead, I went the route of analyzing, because it kind of gets two different skills going on at the same time. You have to analyze, but then you have to present and prove your analysis. So your thesis has to be specific and clear and state an argument. Otherwise, you're not analyzing anything. This is also known as an interpretation. Sometimes you can look at a text and make an analysis, but still be very objective about it. But when you reach a conclusion through your analysis, that becomes your interpretation. So really, you're interpreting in this essay, but it's usually termed a literary analysis. Okay, so make sure that your thesis statement in your introduction is argumentative. It's got to be something that you have to prove, and it's got to be something that somebody could argue with. So it's kind of your opinion, but you would never state it as that. Don't say, I think that, and then go on with your thesis. Just present it as, objectively as you can. But it still needs to be an argument, and make sure you're really clear and specific as to what you're arguing. Also, make sure that you use your introduction to give proper context. State the name of the author and the title of the work, and then give context as to what you're writing about within that work, because there's a lot of things that you could analyze. In your essay, I'm going to ask you to analyze the characters. So your introduction needs to give the context of the character you're discussing, and again, the author and the title. So again, your introduction is extremely important as you begin this paper. So make sure you provide proper context, and make sure that your thesis statement is an argument. All right, and then once you establish that, once you get your main focus of your paper, then you have to provide effective support in order to prove your thesis is valid and viable. So you can give reasons, you can give examples from the story, and then you need to give explanations of the example. So it is absolutely required that you use examples from the text itself. You can't just, go off on this long, summary. You have to use direct quotes. So when I say examples from the story, they have to be direct quotes from the short story that you'll be analyzing to prove your point. Then every time you provide a direct quote or even a summary, you need to explain why you included that in your paper. Do not let your examples speak for themselves. If you do that, you run the risk of having your reader draw their own conclusions from the support that you're including. You need to direct your reader's thoughts. You need to say, the text says this example furthers the argument in this way. Okay? So not only do you have to provide examples to prove your point, you have to explain how those examples prove your point. Then the last thing that the textbook mentions is effective organization. Make sure you use topic sentences in your body paragraphs. Every one of your body paragraphs needs to have a topic sentence, and every topic sentence needs to be directly related to supporting your thesis statement. The textbook also talks about using key terms about the story, and just any particular words that you can use to help tie everything together. I'm not so much worried about that. I would much rather you worry about your topic sentences and the last one, which is transitions, because they're what's going to make your paper effective. So when you're analyzing, this short story is not particularly long and difficult, at least in my opinion, and you're only working with the characters. So key terms I don't think really is important for this particular essay that you're going to be writing. But the topic sentence and the transitions are absolutely critical. Okay? All right, so that's what analyses have. So when you go to write your own analysis, you need to think about what your purpose is and what your focus is. In the prompt, I tell you that your essay is written to someone who's read the story but wants to know more about the characters. So that's your job. So your purpose is to inform your reader and to make an argument about what you think is going on within the character that you choose. But you also have to make sure that you really focus your thesis statement, because it just needs to be more specific than just a general analysis. Also, you can always start with a working thesis that can change as you write. You can always, start with a general idea, but then as you find more evidence and have more thoughts about it, you can always adjust it. You just have to make sure it's an argument. Also, make sure that you integrate your quotes properly. Use in-text citation, and I've provided all the materials that you need to do that effectively online. You just need to review them. Also, in addition to direct quotations, make sure you use summaries and paraphrases as necessary. Please don't use outside research. We're not doing that in this class this quarter, so you are using an outside source. It's a primary source because you're working with a text that's a story, but I don't want any outside research about that story in your paper. So please do your own thinking and your own writing. Also, I like how the textbook points out because sentences. That's on page 483. So you can know that your paper is an argument if you're using a series of because sentences. So this is happening because this is stated in the text. So review that information and make sure that you use because sentences so that you know for sure that you've got an argument. Lastly, use the critical reading guide on page 485 to help you get started and how to plan and how to implement the 3 elements that I mentioned up here. So I hope you've been finding that this textbook is helpful in how to organize your papers and how to write an effective essay for each, different category we've done. But especially for this one, analyses are hard. It takes a lot of getting used to think in that way and to not just summarize but to analyze. So if you're having trouble, just let me know. Again, this is what I studied in college. This is what I do. I overanalyze things. So if you need any help, you just let me know, and I will try to reword things as much as possible. And if you have a question, I can try to find some outside help to put it in a different way if I'm not being as clear as you'd like me to be. So just read the text. Hopefully, it outlines everything that you need. But if not, just let me know, and I will try to supplement where I can. So have fun with it. Analyzing is amazing and great once you get the hang of it. So just do your best, work at it, and hopefully you'll get the hang of it quickly.